The DeLorean time machine isn't just an iconic movie prop. Behind those gull-wing doors lies a world of bizarre production secrets, makeshift engineering, and Hollywood magic that would make Doc Brown himself say, "Great Scott!" From coffee grinders powering the future to fish farm anchors that were once car parts, the real story of building this legendary vehicle is stranger than fiction. Buckle up as we count down 20 weird facts that'll change how you watch Back to the Future forever.
Good evening. I'm Dr. Emmett Brown. I'm standing on the parking lot at Twin Pines Mall.
Number 20. The time machine was almost a refrigerator. In the original draft of the screenplay, the time machine wasn't a car at all, but rather a laser device housed inside a refrigerator that would be loaded onto a truck and driven into a nuclear blast to power time travel. Marty McFly would have climbed inside the fridge to shelter himself from the explosion, which sounds absolutely insane by today's standards. However, Steven Spielberg immediately shut down this dangerous idea, fearing that children watching the film might try to recreate the scene by climbing into refrigerators at home. This was a legitimate concern during the 1980s, as household fridges still had latches that could trap children inside, leading to tragic accidents. The decision to change the time machine from a refrigerator to a vehicle wasn't just about mobility or visual appeal. It was literally a life-saving choice that prevented potential copycat incidents among young viewers. By transforming the concept into the sleek DeLorean we all know and love, the filmmakers created something that was not only more cinematically interesting, but also safer for impressionable audiences. This last-minute pivot gave us one of cinema's most recognizable vehicles and simultaneously avoided a public safety disaster that could have overshadowed the entire franchise.
Wait a minute, what are you doing, Doc?
Number 19. Mr. Fusion is actually a coffee grinder from Alien. The iconic Mr. Fusion home energy reactor that appears on the back of the DeLorean was actually created from a Krupp's model 223A coffee grinder, marketed under the name Coffina. But here's where it gets truly weird. This exact same coffee grinder model had already appeared in another science fiction classic 6 years earlier. The Krupp's Coffina grinder was visible in the 1979 film Alien, where it served as a futuristic kitchen appliance aboard the spaceship Nostromo. So, the device that powers the DeLorean's time circuits in 2015 was actually recycled movie magic from a completely different franchise. The prop makers simply painted the grinder white, added custom vinyl decals featuring the Westinghouse-style logo, and mounted it onto a modified Singer Aerospace Librascope cap as the base. What started as a throwaway joke at the end of the first film, when Doc Brown returns from the future and starts dumping banana peels and beer into his fusion reactor, became one of the most recognizable props in the trilogy. Today, original Krupp's 223 coffee grinders are highly sought after by collectors, with fans paying hundreds of dollars to create their own Mr. Fusion replicas. Number 18. Visitors literally stole pieces off the original car. After filming wrapped on Back to the Future, Part 3: The Hero, a car was delivered to Universal Studios Hollywood as an attraction piece, but as time passed, visitors started taking parts off the vehicle and wandering off with them. This wasn't just minor vandalism or accidental damage. Enthusiastic fans were systematically dismantling one of cinema's most valuable props, bolt by bolt, rivet by rivet, treating it like a bizarre, all-you-can-steal buffet of movie memorabilia. The DeLorean was positioned where tour visitors could see it up close, which seemed like a great idea until people realized nobody was really watching. Pieces of the Flux capacitor, dashboard components, exterior trim, and various time machine modifications began disappearing at an alarming rate. The car became so deteriorated and picked apart that it looked more like a rusted Hulk than the gleaming time machine audiences remembered. Finally, producer Bob Gale assembled a specialized restoration team to repair the vehicle and restore it to pristine condition. The car was then placed in a protective clear display case, safely out of reach of sticky-fingered tourists. Today, this fully restored Hero A car resides at the Peterson Automotive Museum in Los Angeles, where it's properly secured and protected for future generations to admire without dismantling.
Afterwards, every studio wanted to make Back to the Future from the exact same script.
Number 17. Crew members used hair dryers to keep the doors open. The iconic gull-wing doors remained open thanks to struts with gas-filled cylinders, but during cold night scenes, such as the movie's climax in the town square, the weather caused the gas in the struts to contract, making the doors slowly lower during takes and ruining shots. This created a genuinely frustrating production problem during one of the film's most critical sequences, when Doc and Marty are desperately trying to harness lightning to send Marty back to 1985. Between every single take, special effects crew members had to rush in with ordinary household hair dryers to warm up the gull-wing door mechanisms and keep them functioning properly. Imagine the absurdity of this high-budget Hollywood production, relying on the same tools your grandmother uses for her weekly salon appointment. The crew essentially became door-warming specialists, blasting hot air into the gas cylinders to prevent them from compacting in the cold California night air. This added significant time to an already complex shooting schedule, as they couldn't just film continuously but had to pause for door maintenance between each attempt. It's one of those behind-the-scenes realities that completely demystifies movie magic, revealing that sometimes the solution to a sophisticated engineering problem is literally just pointing a hairdryer at it until it works again.
You turn the time circuits on. A picture in my head. A picture of this.
Number 16. The NJ Clear reactor was built from a Dodge hubcap and helicopter parts. The production design team threw all manner of random car parts and mechanical bits onto the DeLorean in a process similar to kitbashing, with a wheel cover from a Dodge Polara and pieces from a helicopter gas turbine engine used to make the nuclear reactor in the back. This perfectly exemplifies the resourceful, throw everything at the wall approach that defined 1980s movie making, long before computer-generated imagery could simply create whatever filmmakers imagined. Inside the cabin, a battery post cleaner was turned into a handle that activates the time circuits, proving that literally anything could become a critical component of time travel technology with the right paint job and camera angle. Production designer Larry Paul and artist Michael Fink, who had previously worked on films like Star Wars, Alien, and Blade Runner, brought their expertise in creating believable futuristic technology from everyday objects. They raided auto parts stores, aerospace surplus warehouses, and junkyards to find components that looked sufficiently scientific and otherworldly. Aircraft parts and blinking lights were added throughout the exterior to enhance the jury-rigged mad scientist aesthetic that made Doc Brown's invention feel authentically homemade rather than factory manufactured. The result was a time machine that looked exactly like something an eccentric inventor would cobble together in his garage over 30 years of obsessive tinkering. Number 15. The speedometer was fake because it couldn't go past 85. The actual speedometer on the production, DeLorean's dashboard, only went up to 85 miles per hour, but the car had to reach 88 mph to time travel, which was literally impossible to display. This wasn't a design flaw specific to the DeLorean, but rather a result of a bizarre government mandate from the Jimmy Carter administration in the late 1970s. The policy decreed that automobile speedometers couldn't read above 85 mph, based on the misguided assumption that if drivers couldn't see speeds higher than 85 on their dashboard, they simply wouldn't drive faster than that. Of course, this logic was completely absurd, but it became law nonetheless. The Back to the Future production team solved this problem with typical Hollywood ingenuity. They simply created a fake speedometer template and stuck it over the real one, extending the numbers all the way up to 95 mph. This allowed them to capture those dramatic close-up shots of the needle climbing past 88 and hitting the magic number that would send Marty McFly hurtling through time. Without this simple sticker modification, one of the film's most iconic visual moments, watching that speedometer race toward 88, would have been completely impossible to film, convincingly. Number 14. Ford offered $70,000 to replace the DeLorean with a Mustang. Universal Pictures hired a product placement company for the production, and there was a point where a $75,000 deal was proposed on the condition that the DMC DeLorean was swapped out for a Ford Mustang. To put this in perspective, a single day of filming on Back to the Future cost approximately $40,000, so Ford's offer would have covered nearly 2 days of production expenses. This was serious money that could have significantly offset the film's budget, and studio executives were understandably tempted by the proposal. However, producer Bob Gale wasn't having any of it, delivering one of the most legendary rejections in Hollywood history. When presented with the Mustang deal, Gale's response was blunt and profane. He stated that Doc Brown doesn't drive a Mustang, using considerably more colorful language. His creative vision was non-negotiable. Even when $75,000 was on the table, Gale and director Robert Zemeckis understood something fundamental that the product placement department didn't. The DeLorean's unique gull-wing doors and futuristic stainless steel body were essential to the story, making it look like an alien spacecraft when it appeared to 1950s families. A Fox body, Mustang, however cool, simply couldn't deliver that same otherworldly UFO aesthetic that was crucial to multiple scenes. Number 13. The engine sounds came from a Porsche, not a DeLorean. The DeLorean came equipped with a 2.85-liter PRV V6 engine, but in the original movie, the roaring engine sound actually came from an 8-cylinder Porsche engine. The real DeLorean DMC-12 was notoriously underpowered, producing only 130 horsepower from its anemic V, 6 sourced from a European joint venture between Peugeot, Renault, and Volvo. This meant the actual car's engine sounded disappointingly weak and wheezy, completely inappropriate for a vehicle that needed to convey speed, power, and the ability to break through the space-time continuum. Sound engineers recognized immediately that the authentic DeLorean engine noise would undermine the dramatic tension of every chase scene and time travel sequence, making the supposedly powerful time machine sound more like a struggling economy car. So, they replaced it entirely in post-production with the aggressive, throaty roar of a Porsche engine, giving the DeLorean an auditory presence that matched its visual coolness. Audio analysis reveals significant order content that contributes to the sporty, slightly rough sound that audiences associate with the time machine. But none of that actually came from the car itself. This creative enhancement was so successful that most viewers never questioned whether they were hearing the genuine article, accepting the dubbed Porsche sounds as the authentic voice of the DeLorean time machine.
This readout tells you where you're going, this one tells you where you are, this one tells you where you were.
Number 12. One DeLorean was cut apart, so cameras could fit. Inside the cramped interior of the diminutive 1981 DeLorean DMC, 12 made things difficult for the film crew since their large cameras couldn't fit inside the car to film interior conversations with the characters. So the C car replicated the A car's interior perfectly, but the frunk was cut out so that large film cameras could be mounted to shoot interior scenes. This wasn't just removing a panel or two, but rather systematically dismantling major sections of the vehicle to accommodate the massive 35mm Panaflex cameras that were standard for Hollywood productions in the mid-1980s. The back half of the C car was also completely cut away to mount additional equipment needed to power the cameras, lights, and interior practical effects, like the glowing flux capacitor and time circuit displays. Essentially, they transformed a fully functional automobile into a specialized filming platform, sacrificing structural integrity for cinematic versatility. This allowed director Robert Zemeckis to capture those crucial intimate moments between Doc and Marty inside the vehicle, including the exposition-heavy scenes where Doc explains how the flux capacitor works and demonstrates the time circuit controls. Without this butchered C car, all interior dialogue scenes would have required awkward camera angles shot through windows or doors, severely limiting the visual storytelling possibilities and making it impossible to achieve the immersive perspective audiences needed. Number 11. The DeLorean's gull-wing door dies became fish farm anchors in Ireland. After the bankruptcy of DeLorean Motor Company in 1982, Most of the tooling and parts from the Irish factory were bought and shipped back to the United States, but one important component was missing: the massive steel stamping dies for the DMC-12's signature gull-wing doors. These enormous industrial dies, worth hundreds of thousands of dollars and essential for manufacturing the car's most iconic feature, had mysteriously vanished without a trace. For nearly 2 decades, they remained lost, their location unknown to automotive historians and DeLorean enthusiasts worldwide. Then came one of the strangest discoveries in automotive history. The dies resurfaced literally in the year 2000, when it turned out they were being used as anchors for boundary nets at a fish farm in Western Ireland. Someone had apparently looked at these precision-engineered manufacturing tools, shrugged, and decided they'd make excellent weights for keeping fishing nets in place underwater. The sheer absurdity of using irreplaceable gull-wing door stamping dies, pieces of automotive manufacturing history that helped create one of cinema's most famous vehicles, as glorified fishing weights, is almost incomprehensible. By the time they were discovered, the dies had spent years submerged in Irish waters, serving a purpose so mundane it bordered on sacrilege for anyone who appreciated the DeLorean's cultural significance.
We just passed 45, Roscoe!
Number 10. A Volkswagen Beetle frame was hidden under the Western DeLorean. In the off-road scenes in the third film, a modified off-road Volkswagen Beetle frame was fitted to the DeLorean with the white wall tires and baby moon hubcaps. This means that the rugged frontier-ready time machine bouncing across the Old West desert wasn't actually a DeLorean at all beneath its stainless steel skin. The production team recognized early on that the real DMC-12, with its low ground clearance, fragile fiberglass underbody, and rear-mounted engine, would be completely destroyed if they attempted genuine off-road stunt work in the harsh desert terrain. So they essentially created a DeLorean costume worn by a Volkswagen Beetle chassis, taking advantage of the VW's legendary durability and superior off-road capabilities. This Frankenstein creation allowed stunt drivers to bash through rough terrain, kick up authentic dust clouds, and execute the dramatic chase sequences with Buford Tannen's gang without risking the destruction of an actual DeLorean. The white wall tires and baby moon hubcaps that Doc Brown installed for the 1880s weren't just period-appropriate styling choices, but also necessary to complete the disguise and make the modified Beetle frame look like a plausible time machine modification. From the outside, audiences saw the familiar stainless steel body and gull-wing doors, completely unaware that underneath lurked the humble German engineering that had been conquering difficult terrain since World War II.
Look out!
Number 9. Liquid nitrogen was poured on the car to make it look cold. Different parts from 3 1982 DeLoreans were used in the first film, and liquid nitrogen was poured onto the car for scenes after it had traveled through time to give the impression that it was cold. This created the iconic frozen frost-covered effect that became one of the most memorable visual signatures of time travel in the franchise, with ice crystals forming across the entire stainless steel body and vapor billowing off the metal surfaces. The science behind this effect was beautifully simple. Liquid nitrogen has a temperature of approximately minus 196 degrees Celsius. So, when poured directly onto the car's metal surfaces, it would instantly freeze any atmospheric moisture and create spectacular condensation clouds. Special effects crew members would douse the vehicle moments before filming, working quickly as the nitrogen evaporated and the ice began melting under the California sun. In one of the first scenes, carbon dioxide extinguishers were hidden inside the DeLorean to simulate the exhaust effect, adding to the impression that the time machine was venting supercooled gases from its temporal displacement system. These practical effects, achieved with relatively simple materials and clever timing, created a far more convincing frozen time machine than any special effects technique available in 1985 could have produced digitally. The frost-covered DeLorean became so iconic that it's now impossible to imagine the car arriving from a different time period without that distinctive icy appearance.
A vision! A picture in my head. A picture of this. This is...
Number 8. The Flux capacitor. Was originally called TIE. Flux compressor. Dr. Emmett Brown originally conceived the idea for the flux capacitor on November 5, 1955, when he slipped on the edge of his toilet while hanging a clock in his bathroom and hit his head on the sink. But in 1955, Doc had named the flux capacitor the flux compressor, as shown on 1955 Doc's diagram. This reveals a subtle but fascinating detail that most viewers never notice during their viewings of the trilogy. When Marty shows the 1955 version of Doc Brown, the video recording explaining how the time machine works, the handwritten diagrams visible in Doc's laboratory actually use different terminology than what 1985 Doc would eventually adopt. The name evolution from flux compressor to flux capacitor suggests that Doc Brown refined his understanding of the device over the 30 years between his initial bathroom floor inspiration and actually building a working prototype. A compressor typically reduces volume and increases pressure, while a capacitor stores and releases energy, indicating that Doc's theoretical framework evolved as his knowledge deepened. This attention to detail, showing how Doc's nomenclature matured alongside his scientific understanding, demonstrates the incredible care that went into making the time travel mechanics feel authentic and internally consistent. It's the kind of subtle world building that rewards careful viewing and suggests that Doc Brown's journey from flash of inspiration to functional time machine involves significant theoretical development and refinement. Number 7. The original ending involved a nuclear bomb test site. The original ending of the 1985 film Back to the Future was to have Marty outrun a nuclear explosion at a test site to power the DeLorean's flux capacitor to travel back to 1985. However, during the movie's filming, it went over budget and behind schedule, and Universal refused to grant the producers more money, as it couldn't afford the desert location to shoot such a scenario. This would have been a dramatically different conclusion to the film, replacing the iconic clock tower lightning strike with an atomic blast straight out of a 1950s newsreel. The concept made a certain twisted sense. Nuclear detonations were occurring regularly in the Nevada desert during the 1950s, and harnessing that massive energy release to generate the 1.21 gigawatts needed for time travel had a kind of historical authenticity. Marty would have needed to precisely time his approach to the blast zone, accelerating the DeLorean to 88 miles per hour while simultaneously positioning himself to catch the electromagnetic pulse from the explosion without being vaporized. However, when production costs spiraled and Universal's accountants put their foot down, the filmmakers were forced to develop a more budget-friendly alternative. This financial constraint actually improved the film immeasurably, as the clock tower sequence became one of cinema's most perfectly choreographed climaxes, with the lightning strike providing an elegant solution that tied together multiple plot threads while delivering spectacular visuals without requiring expensive desert location shoots. Number 6. 7 different DeLoreans were used across the trilogy. Ultimately, 5 real DeLoreans were used in the filming of the trilogy, plus 1 process car built for interior shots, and a 7th DeLorean was also used in the filming, but this one was merely a full-sized fiberglass model used for exterior shots, where the vehicle hovers above the set, as well as when the actors interact with the vehicle. This fleet of time machines included the Hero A car, which was the most detailed and appeared in scenes with the actors, the Stunt B car, which was ultimately destroyed by a train at the end of Part 3, and the Interior C car, which was cut apart for camera access. 3 additional DeLoreans were built specifically for the sequels, including the Oxnard car with train wheels for railway scenes, and 2 desert cars for the Old West sequences in Part 3. The fiberglass flying DeLorean was essential because a real stainless steel car would have been far too heavy to safely suspend on cables and wires for the hovering sequences in Part 2. This lightweight replica could be lifted, lowered, and maneuvered without risking catastrophic accidents or requiring industrial-grade rigging equipment. Managing this small fleet of specialized vehicles created enormous logistical challenges for the production team, as each car needed to be in the right place at the right time, properly maintained and modified for its specific role. The fact that only one of these 7 vehicles, the Hero A car, survives today in pristine condition at the Peterson Museum makes it an irreplaceable piece of cinema history. Number 5. The crew couldn't fit an actor and a camera inside simultaneously. It was actually impossible to fit both an actor and a 35mm Panaflex camera in the vehicle at the same time. This seemingly simple logistical problem became one of the production's most persistent headaches, forcing the crew to develop elaborate workarounds for what should have been straightforward filming scenarios. The DeLorean DMC-12 was designed as a compact 2-seater sports car with extremely limited interior space, never intended to accommodate professional film equipment alongside human occupants. When cameramen attempted to squeeze into the cabin with Michael J. Fox or Christopher Lloyd, they discovered there was literally no physical configuration that allowed both bodies and the massive camera rig to exist in the same space without someone getting crushed or the equipment being damaged. This is precisely why the C-car had to be completely dismantled and converted into a filming platform rather than a functional automobile. The production team removed entire sections of the vehicle's structure, creating openings where cameras could be mounted externally while still capturing interior perspectives. For wider shots showing both actors inside the DeLorean, the crew had to rely on carefully positioned cameras shooting through windows and windshields, or use the gutted C-car with cameras mounted where the engine compartment once existed. This constraint affected every creative decision about how to photograph scenes inside the time machine, forcing Robert Zemeckis to be incredibly strategic about camera placement and shot composition. Number 4. 88 miles per hour was chosen because it looked cool. There is plenty of speculation about it by fans, but the reality is actually pretty simple. For starters, 88 is a really easy number to remember, and secondly, Doc Brown likely wouldn't accidentally go that fast while just driving around. Despite decades of fan theories attempting to find scientific justification or hidden meaning behind the specific speed required for temporal displacement, the truth is refreshingly mundane and purely practical. Screenwriter Bob Gale and director Robert Zemeckis weren't consulting physics textbooks or theoretical papers on space-time manipulation when they chose 88 modifications. They were thinking like storytellers, selecting a number that would be memorable for audiences and create dramatic tension without being so high that it seemed impossible to achieve with a 1980s sports car. 88 is visually distinctive on a speedometer, with those 2 repeating digits creating a satisfying symmetry that looks great in close-up shots. It's also just above normal highway speeds, but well below what would require professional stunt driving on a closed course, making it believable that Marty could reach it in various situations throughout the trilogy. The number needed to feel arbitrary enough to be scientific, a precise threshold discovered through Doc Brown's experiments rather than a round figure like 75 or 100. Fans have invented elaborate explanations involving flux dispersal rates and temporal physics, but the filmmakers were simply choosing what worked best cinematically, proving that sometimes the most iconic elements of beloved films have surprisingly simple origins. Number 3. Stainless steel panels couldn't be hammered out when dented. The stainless steel panels with which the vehicle is constructed make it look super slick, but one serious drawback that the Back to the Future production had to deal with was that it was impossible to hammer out dents. And it was especially during the making of Back to the Future Part 3 that there was a regular issue needing to swap out various parts. Traditional automotive bodywork relies on the malleability of steel or aluminum, allowing skilled technicians to carefully reshape damaged panels back to their original contours using specialized hammers and dollies. However, the DeLorean's brushed SS304 austenitic stainless steel body panels, the same grade used in commercial kitchen equipment and beer kegs, behaved completely differently under stress. When these panels got dented or deformed during stunt work, They couldn't simply be massaged back into shape like conventional car bodies. The molecular structure of stainless steel makes it far more resistant to plastic deformation, meaning once it's bent, it tends to stay bent or crack rather than flowing back to its original form. This created nightmarish logistics for the production team, particularly during the desert sequences of Part 3, where the cars were being subjected to rough terrain, collisions, and general abuse. Instead of quick repairs between takes, damaged panels had to be completely removed and replaced with spare parts, assuming spares were available. In Back to the Future, Part 2, Doc remarks that the 46 Ford driven by Biff Tannen would tear through the DeLorean like tin foil if the two cars were to collide. And that's not just fiction invented to add drama to the film's plot. Number 2, the DeLorean's designer also created the Jakes Bond, Lotus Esprit. The DeLorean DMC-12 features a sleek chassis with a pointed front, almost as if it was designed to penetrate through walls, which was the brainchild of Giorgetto Giugiaro of Italy Design. And Giorgetto Giugiaro was also behind another vehicle, the Lotus Esprit, which features a similar design and was driven by Roger Moore's James Bond during his tenure. This connection reveals why the DeLorean possessed such a distinctively futuristic, wedge-shaped aesthetic that made it perfect for science fiction. Giugiaro was one of the most influential automotive designers of the 20th century, responsible for creating some of the era's most visually striking vehicles. His design philosophy emphasized sharp angles, geometric precision, and a low-slung profile that looked like it belonged in a science fiction film rather than a suburban driveway. The Lotus Esprit gained immortality when it transformed into a submarine in The Spy Who Loved Me, becoming one of the most memorable Bond cars in franchise history. When Giugiaro applied similar design principles to the DeLorean, he created another vehicle that seemed to exist outside normal automotive conventions, looking more like a spacecraft than traditional transportation. The shared DNA between these two cars explains why both became science fiction, icons despite their real-world performance limitations. The DeLorean's angular bodywork, scissor-style gull-wing doors, and overall proportions all reflected Giugiaro's signature approach to automotive sculpture, creating a vehicle that looked fast and futuristic even when standing still, which was fortunate given the DMC-12's underwhelming actual performance capabilities.
I'm Dr. Emmett Brown. I'm standing on the parking lot at Twin Pines Mall. It's Saturday morning, October 26, 1985.
Number 1, John DeLorean's Cocaine trial gave the car an edgy appeal. In 1982, John DeLorean became the target of an FBI entrapment operation when he was desperately trying to keep the DeLorean Motor Company afloat, and was charged with cocaine trafficking after being solicited by an informant, though he was eventually acquitted, and the trial was happening when Back to the Future was in development. Most studios would have immediately distanced themselves from any vehicle associated with such a massive scandal, fearing negative publicity and potential controversy. However, Bob Gale and Robert Zemeckis saw the situation completely differently. While you might think that a studio movie would try and steer clear of any controversy, the new book says that the ordeal gave the car an added sense of danger. The filmmakers recognized that John DeLorean's very public legal troubles, which dominated news headlines throughout the early 1980s, transformed the already unusual vehicle into something genuinely counterculture and rebellious. Here was a car created by a renegade ex-General Motors executive who'd burned his bridges with the automotive establishment, built in a troubled factory in Northern Ireland, and now associated with one of the decade's most sensational criminal trials. This wasn't just any sports car. It carried the weight of scandal, ambition, failure, and defiance. That dangerous edge perfectly complemented Doc Brown's character as a wild-eyed inventor willing to steal plutonium from terrorists and mess with the fabric of space-time itself. The DeLorean's troubled real-world history made it the ideal vehicle for an eccentric scientist's time machine. From coffee grinders to sea cane trials, hair dryers to fish farm anchors, the DeLorean time machine's real story proves that truth is stranger than fiction. These weird facts show that creating movie magic requires equal parts genius, improvisation, and sheer luck. Great Scott indeed. Which fact shocked you most? Let us know below.